Hi, this is Dan Gilvazan, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
This Themistocles has shown himself to be quite brilliant in battle. Which is more than I can say for any of you. Do you gentlemen find my command unreasonable? Is it too much to ask for victory? For though I stand among 10,000, I am alone. I long for a soul who would stand by my side, who I could trust. Tell me, General Kashani, are you that man?
You will taste your victory by the day's end. I will make certain of it.
I hope so.
You are now on the inside of what I like to call the circle of trust.
We are all connected in the great circle of life.
You know something, Bert? What? I think you and I are going in circles.
It feels like we're going in circles.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Because it's a circle.
Yeah, we heard about the circle.
Yes, we're familiar with shapes.
This is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan, and we are Talking in Circles, brought to you by the Geekcast Radio Network, the podcast where we prove you always know what you're getting when you get a box of chocolates, because it says right on the box, Forrest Gump is living a lie. How's the week been going for you guys?
Pretty good. Had an interesting week. I went to a auction last weekend, and there were some comic books there. And I kind of had hopes of getting some good deals on some older stuff. They had some old Avengers stuff and some X-Men stuff, but they ended up going too high because, you know, people see comic books and they immediately think they're worth like hundreds of dollars. The funniest part of that trip was, you know, when you're at like a Comic-Con or something like that, you're trying to look through comics and there's like this teenager next to you that hasn't showered in like a week and they just smell so bad.
Yeah, like
every convention experience.
Yeah, like everyone ever and about 40% of the people there.
Yeah. You mean the guy with the colander on his head when we were at the Baltimore Con that passed by?
Yeah, that was bad. But I think I've one that tops that. There are also some trains at this, some like model trains at this auction and stuff. And I'm looking through a box of comics and all of a sudden this like stench wave like comes over me. And there's this guy standing next to me looking at the trains.
There's visible lines.
There was. He had like his own like EM field surrounding him or something.
He looked like Big Pen from Peanuts.
Yeah, he really did. But, I mean, this guy had no excuse to be like a teenager that doesn't shower or something. This guy was like a 70-year-old man, fully mentally capable and everything. He was just like a slob. Like, he had like a filthy coat and clothes and everything. And he honestly smelled like he has not showered in a month. And it was just so bad. And I kept avoiding him the whole day. And I kind of found out by walking by him a few times that he actually had a stink radius that you could like sense. And
did you get out like rulers and graphs? And like,
well, here's the epicenter of the disaster.
By my estimations, he had about a 15-foot stink radius. Well, so as long as you stayed beyond that, you're okay. But oh dear Lord, that man stunk so bad.
Of 15 feet around the guy. That's how Chuck figured it out.
I put like the yellow caution tape around him and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my funny story for the week.
How's your week been going, Greg?
Pretty good. Went on a class field trip to a science museum, and I got bit by a spider. It was really weird, and I'm feeling kind of sick right now, so I'm not sure how that's going to turn out.
Interesting. Stay away from subways because you never know what can happen.
How's your Aunt May feel about it?
She doesn't really know. I don't want to worry her, though.
Tell your Uncle Ben that you love him.
Okay, why? What's going to happen on Ben?
Nothing.
He comes up with a really good rice.
Oh, okay, good. So we're going to be rich. All right.
Yeah, good luck with that.
You guys got me worried with how you said that.
Yeah. And remember, with great money comes no responsibility. Anyways, my week has been fine. Actually, it's been rather uneventful. I really have nothing really to say. It's just been rather busy and whatnot. So, yeah, so my week's been pretty blah, I guess. Nothing bad happened, so that's a good thing. Anyways, for you guys out all there, we are talking in circles. And we begin each podcast with like a roundabout discussion of what we've been up to recently. And then for our second segment, we have a special different game or something we like to play. I'm pretty sure everyone out there knows it's March Madness. Basketball is kind of in the air. A lot of people doing their brackets and all that stuff. Even people that know nothing about basketball are trying to win $1 billion. I filled out my bracket, and I don't think I got a game right yet. I just know nothing about college basketball. I kind of know. I get a feeling of how people feel when they do their Oscar ballots because I'm like, I don't know. North Carolina's good, right? They're Duke. I heard good things. But,
How about the Yankees?
Yeah, I was like looking for Jordan's team. He wasn't there. I don't know. In the spirit of that, we of course going to take that idea, steal it, and kind of geekify it a little bit. And we're going to be doing a bracket of who is the biggest badass in all of kind of pop culture land, from movies to celebrities to comic books to television shows, a little bit of everything. And it's going to be kind of fun. We'll reveal the people who are in it as we go. We're going to do the first round this episode, so it'll be 32 matchups, and then we'll finish it next week. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure it'll bring a lot of lively discussion, a lot of lively debate on, how right we are, how wrong we are, who we didn't include and who we didn't, but it's all in good fun. So
we did not include Kim Kardashian. I'm sorry.
No. It's
she does have a pretty badass though.
Yes. It's been very naughty, is what you're trying to say. Anyways, but before we get to that, Chuck and Greg, I know you guys recently saw a movie together. How sweet. Hold hands. I'm sure it was a delightful time. You saw the new 300 sequel. So how was it?
I thought it was pretty good. They say it's a sequel, but it's a prequel / concurrent / sequel. It's sort of an all-in-one deal.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, but I mean, I guess it works because they kind of depict the battle the Athenians faced while the Spartans were fighting in the first movie, and then they kind of got into what was happening at the same time and what was happening a little bit after that. And how they wanted to kind of unite Greece against the Persians after the first 300 movie. Overall, I wasn't into this movie as I was for the first one.
So. I was watching the exit sign for like a good minute or two during this movie. I was just staring at the exit sign.
Yeah, I wasn't as into this one. I mean, there were a lot of good things about it. I mean, I'll list a few good things. The fight choreography was fantastic, just like the first film, and that's the biggest reason I wanted to see this, is because I really enjoy those sword and sandal flicks, and just watching that old style of fighting, I think that's really interesting to watch. Honestly, it's probably the best part of the movie. The story's pretty good. I do like how they tied into the first one. As I mentioned, they explained to a degree what was going on as the battle with the Spartans in the first film was going on. And they also get into some background with Xerxes as a child and explain how Themistocles killed his father during an old battle, and that kind of molded him into this, revenge-driven madman. And one thing, though, I don't know if Greg's going to agree with me on this, but I haven't
really agreed so far on any of that, Chuck. Sorry.
Well, I didn't really like the whole explanation on how he became 10 feet tall, with him bathing in this mystical pool that gave him strength and made him huge and stuff. I thought that was kind of stupid, and
I thought
they could have done something different.
The backstory of Xerxes was unimportant to this particular story. If they wanted to have that in the first one of how he came to be a god, okay, but I felt like it really didn't have a place in this movie. So
I thought it was kind of necessary though, because it involved Themistocles, who was the main character of this movie. So I thought that kind of tied it in well. But it was a nice little touch, I guess. But I think a lot of his backstory was just stupid, because there's a lot of stuff in this movie that isn't that really far-fetched sci-fi stuff, and to just make one part of it like that, it's kind of weird. It kind of throws it off kilter to me. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think they could have explained it some other way. I don't know. But after that, they kind of get into how the Athenians continued to battle the Persians after they had heard of the Spartans' defeat. And that's where it kind of turns into the sequel part. And I do like what they did with having Themistocles persuade Leonidas' wife to seek vengeance for his death. The reason for that was Themistocles has this dream of like uniting Greece, and he's trying to use the Spartan 300 as like martyrs, and he's trying to get Queen Gorgo, which is her name, which I found from IMDb. Did not catch that in the movie. So
I don't think they ever actually really mention her name.
They might have, but I don't know. I didn't catch it at all, but
I was probably staring at the exit sign at the time.
Was it a nice exit sign at least?
It was a nice green, so I was just staring at it. It was like the one time when I was working at the supermarket and I took way too much Benadryl and I was like halfway falling asleep and I was staring at this green neon sign the whole night.
Interesting. Anyways, Chuck, what you were saying?
Yeah, they end up trying to get Queen Gorgo to send all the Spartan fleet to aid the Athenians in the battle with the Persians. And, I mean, kind of considering all that, it did create a pretty good tapestry, I guess, in the overall story. It's kind of interesting, but, I mean, in spite of all these things, it still seemed like it was a bit of a drop-off from the first film. I mean, you might even say it was a big drop-off, but...
It was a big drop-off, if you ask me.
I mean, I still kind of enjoyed it. Like I said, just for the fighting element, like the choreography, and I just love that stuff. Like all those sword and sandal movies I'm a fan of. So other than being like really weird at certain parts of this, overall I was pretty satisfied with it.
Now on the negative side of things, I guess this is my part where I get to jump in. There was a huge long narration at the beginning of this, which besides keeping us up to beat what happened in the last movie, I thought it was completely pointless. Besides those specific things, I thought it went on for way, way, way too long. The CGI was tragic, to be honest.
Yeah, it was.
I think like Blade 2, or was it the first Blade, where they did the CGI of...
first Blade, yeah.
Yeah, the first Blade where there's this big blow-up of blood going everywhere. The CGI kind of reverted back to that, and I think Blade was one of the first movies to do like a liquid type of CGI for the most part. Anytime anybody got cut in 300, it was very bad blood CGI where it just looked way too shiny. It didn't look like a liquid. It looked more like a solid for the most part. And there's probably other examples, but I don't really remember offhand. It was just the blood and the quantity of CGI blood that they used. It really, really, really stuck out.
The gigantic moon on the horizon too. That was a little much.
Oh yeah, the moon was freaking like it was way too close. Way too close.
Maybe it was closer back then. I don't know.
But then there's a scene that really bugged me towards the end, which I kind of figured out what they were going to use it as a setup for, as kind of like dueling scenes. But there's one point where the main Athenian, what's his name, Chuck?
Themistocles.
Yeah, I forget all these names. They're too complicated for my modern mind. Themistocles gets on the boat and talks with the main villain for this one. The girl, do you know what her name is, Chuck?
Artemisia.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm going to start making up Greek names and see if you notice, like Testicles and...
that I would notice. But he goes on the boat and they're kind of like discussing terms to kind of stop the fighting, I guess. And it was kind of predictable where it was going to go. They kind of hook up and... They kind of use it as a comparison about who's going to win a fight later on, like the final fight. Like, it's she's winning. Oh, she's more physically domineering. Oh, nope, he is. And they're doing it all through sex acts for the most part.
That whole part was just really awful. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was being
edgy.
Edgy. Just to be edgy. Like they were looking for parts to knock it up to being controversial, Go ahead,
the funniest thing about that was the two Persians that were standing outside the cabin and heard the noise, and they're like looking at each other.
Yeah.
It was like a little humor moment they put in there. But
in the first 300, some of the nudity had a place, but this one, that scene just really didn't have a place. Like, why they're enemies? Why are they doing this? I'm the first one to be like, yay, nudity, but I was like, this is pointless. I can just go home and watch a porn on my computer. I don't.
But your home does not have an exit sign.
No, it does. I'm going to have to buy one of those, apparently. Any bad movie, I'll just look at the exit sign on the wall. What else did I think was awful about this movie? The fact that they had Xerxes in there, and then they had this Athene, whatever the fuck her name is.
Amnesia?
Whatever.
Amnesia.
All those names give me that. Like, she seems, he's supposed to be a god, so why the hell are we caring about her? She's like number 2 to him, so why, like, if we're gonna have an enemy, we have to have it just as good as the last enemy or better. Like, I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, it was a little weird how they kind of did that. Like, if they're gonna make it about her, kind of maybe don't even put him in there then.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
She did well with the acting, I guess. She looked nice. She's very pretty woman, but and another thing that bugged me was everybody is talking so intense throughout the entire movie that I was just starting not to care what they were talking about. Like, everybody brought the same intensity and the same kind of speech pattern to their performance, where it all just kind of blended together, where it became like my 11th grade math teacher. It all just became very monotone. And so that was another reason why I was just kind of staring at exit signs, because I
didn't really get that feeling per se, but it was, I kind of see what you're saying though. It was a little like, everyone was like super serious and like kind of the same personality. So
yeah, and everybody had the same intensity to their, in Sparta, we've battled Xerxes, and like, okay.
I never knew that you narrated that. That was good.
Thank you.
One cool thing that I was impressed that they showed was like the that old Greek like phrase, like liquid fire, and I don't even know if that's the right phrase or not, but they had oil in their ships, and they kind of opened these sliding doors on the side of the ships, and like oil poured out onto the sea, and then they lit it on fire with their arrows and stuff, and that was pretty cool, like part of mythology that I remember. So it was pretty neat to see that in there. But
yeah, and the only thing I found really interesting was the Athenians using their brain, like you learn in history class. The Spartans were like brute force, and the Athenians were brain. So it was kind of interesting to see the more brain aspect. I don't think they brought that out too much, but what they did, I kind of appreciated that aspect at least.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess, Greg, one question: Did you like the first 300 movie?
I did enjoy the first 300 movie. I don't know what happened in between that my opinion just changed so much from the first movie to the second movie. Also, by the way, I felt like they used different filters or something, because it didn't look as nice either as the first one. It didn't have that design quality, that every scene could be a photograph kind of quality to it. I don't think the filters were just weird and not really appealing to me on this one.
I'm sure part of that too is that, like, when 300 came out, that type of technology, that action was really not seen to that style before.
Yeah,
and now
everybody
it's been kind
of afterwards.
Yeah, it's been done so much. I wonder if it's like a sequel it's been too long to really be effective. I worry the same thing about the Sin City sequel that's coming out later this year. That, like, I love Sin City. I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I don't know how well it holds up. But I loved it at the time because it was so unique. There was nothing like that. But now it's like 10 years later, literally like 10 years later, maybe a little longer. Certain technology does not date well. You look at some movies from the 80s and you try to then do that again in the 90s, it's not going to work as well. So
yeah, I don't know what the hell happened, but
I have not seen that yet, so I really can't throw my opinion. Hopefully we'll see it sometime. Probably I'll wait for DVD because even
I'd wait for DVD.
yeah. I am interested. We'll see how that is. But you guys have anything else to say about 300 Rise of an Empire?
No, that's about all I got to say about that one.
Rise of my boredom.
All right. I did not see that, but I did see the new TV series. And this was actually, when we talked about sequel, reboot, or destroy, someone mentioned, I think, was it James in the comments mentioned about Cosmos and that reboot that's happening. And that just premiered a few weeks ago. It's coming back. I actually never watched the old Cosmos with Peter Sagan.
Carl Sagan. Thank you, Greg. Yes. Speaking of monotone.
See, he doesn't have a Greek name, so you remember his name.
Yes, I do. I also listened to him a bunch of times in the astronomy club.
Nice. I did watch the first episode of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I'm a pretty big fan of. He's always found him entertaining. I like his podcast, Star Talk.
Pluto exists!
It doesn't, though. What's funny is I was reading something about Pluto and how since its discovery till now, it still hasn't done a complete rotation of the sun yet. It's like, oh, it really is not a planet then.
Wow.
Anyways, so I did watch the new Cosmos that came out. It was like the first episode. I did like it a good deal. I think it has a lot of potential. I'm not sure how long the series is going to run for, but I'm just kind of amazed that a show like this is broadcast on network TV on a Sunday night, like a science show, produced by Seth MacFarlane, the guy who made Family Guy.
Yeah.
It's so mind-boggling to me. And on Fox. It hurts the brain when you think about it too much, but the first episode was cool. It kind of got into space, and just what I really dug about it too was how it's expanded upon like our galaxy, trying to kind of show how big the universe and how much we know about the universe up to this point, and just how minute you realize we are. It's like, oh wow, we are really, really tiny. But the only thing I didn't really dig about it was, like, during the show, he's like in this spaceship that's like flying around, and it did feel like it took a little bit to get going. I was just waiting for it to kind of do more. I'm looking forward to the next episode, but it did feel like an hour of introduction before we actually got into the actual stuff. So, Chuck, you saw it as well, right? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I did like kind of the visuals in the beginning as they were going out through the solar system, out through the Milky Way, and kind of as he was going through that cosmic address thing. I thought the visuals during that time were really cool.
Yeah, that's very true.
With the one part especially too, where it was like, I think it was showing either a planet or a sun or something, and you see the image kind of like warp into like a sphere, and you realize it's like the reflection on the ship. And it just hit me for some reason. I'm like, man, they are like burning through their budget with this. Like in the first episode, like they're showing like a lot of, just graphics and stuff like that. But that's part of the, I guess, the sense of wonder of the show to, get people to watch that, and just the breathtaking visuals and stuff. So that's like a cool part of it.
Sounds like they should have got the guys from that to do 300.
Yeah, really.
300 in space.
Yeah, one little nitpicky thing I had about it, I guess, was kind of the cartoon sequence they showed, like, through the middle of the episode about that Bruno guy. I mean, I thought it was interesting that they told his backstory and stuff like that, but it just felt weird. Like, the cartoon, like, ran, like, really long. Like, I don't know. Did you get that impression, Dan?
It was a little bit awkward when it came in, because it's just like, suddenly here's a cartoon. But,
yeah.
I did like the animation of it. It did kind of go on for a little bit longer than I was expecting. It was like, okay, and then they eventually got to it.
You guys have me thinking this is like Bruno from Very Nice, and animated by Seth MacFarlane.
It's exactly like that, completely. It did go on for a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I think it was, at least I did like the animation of it, and I did think it was an effective way of telling that story. So at the time, I didn't really have an issue, but I could see how it's kind of suddenly like, and it's now a cartoon about history. But
yeah. Overall, it was pretty cool though.
I like to hear, Greg, if you ever get the chance to see what you think, since you watched the original of it. I've never really watched the original, so I don't really know.
The original is very, very like hippie, serene, and then Carl Sagan's narrations are very monotone, and his voice just puts me right to sleep, to be quite honest. Please don't make me watch the Carl Sagan version, please.
No, Unless
I need to go to sleep at night, then it's okay.
I think you'll like Neil deGrasse Tyson's voice. At least I do. Actually, I heard him too on the Nerdist podcast. He was on that about the time this debuted. It's funny. He's a really funny dude. He talks about how people call him, always make fun of his mustache because it looks like it's a porn stash and everything. But it's a good episode with Nerdist if you get a chance to listen to it. Kind of gives you a little bit of backstory on the show and how it came about and everything like that. And it's crazy like how Seth MacFarlane, the guy who did Family Guy, is a big reason that's coming on. Like it would not be on Fox if it wasn't for him. So there's a lot of people who are out there who are kind of not big fans of him. I enjoy it, and you got to give him credit for trying to expand his career into new areas. So that's at least one good thing. But anyways, and you guys got anything else before we take a break here and we get into our big bad tournament?
I did want to talk about one thing actually, and I think it's something that we all kind of watched, or at least found out the news online at some point in the last couple of days, and that was the Marvel Studios TV special that was on Tuesday night.
I did not see it because my wife was watching Glee. So I missed it, but I did see.
That is not a good reason, Tim.
I know I should probably hand in my geek card right now, but
license has been revoked.
I did go to the online and did read up all the information on it though. So.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It for the most part it just kind of recapped all the movies released by Marvel Studios, like starting with Iron Man and did up through like Thor: The Dark World, and there were some like funny little tidbits in the beginning, but I think like the last maybe 20 minutes were like the best part of it, where they kind of show some new footage of Captain America, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Like half a second of Ant-Man.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you guys actually saw, but you get a glimpse of Ronan the Accuser in there from Guardians. And I gotta say, he actually looked like spot on visually, like with respect to the comics. Like that looked pretty cool, actually.
I didn't see him now. Sorry.
Yeah.
I did see the image. He's like in the background and he has like the hood on. So
yeah,
I am curious how he's going to work. I do like that character a great deal. So
yeah, then they showed some sketches, like some concept art sketches for Avengers Age of Ultron. And that included a couple of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And they looked great too. I thought Quicksilver especially, I think he looks way better than Fox's version that's going to be in the X-Men movie.
He does look a lot better in that, yes.
He's kind of got the classic like sky blue color uniform, and although it's a little bit different than the comics. Yeah. It's a little bit different than the comics, but I think it looks pretty good so far.
It does. And I thought they made Scarlet Witch, who's going to be played by Elizabeth Olsen, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's the sister of Mary Kate and Ashley, and the outfit that they give her for Scarlet Witch, I'm like, I think they just raided her sister's wardrobe. Like they went into Mary Kate and Ashley's wardrobe and just picked out a couple of things.
It was a full house.
Oh, snap!
But yeah, then the biggest reveal, was kind of came at the end, and that was a concept sketch of the Hulk fighting Iron Man wearing the Hulkbuster armor.
And you get to see a little bit of the gauntlet, too.
And talk about a geek moment. I mean, that was just awesome. I know the Hulkbuster armor is a major fan favorite. I know the three of us all like it, too.
Yeah.
And I think after Iron Man being in, like, 4 movies, fans are, like, really just hoping for this Hulkbuster armor to kind of appear in one of these movies at some point. And I thought it looked pretty sweet. I know it's just a concept drawing for now, but it's huge too. Like it's even bigger than the Hulk. And from my angle, I mean, it looked like a lot like the comic version too. So I'm definitely excited to see that in action.
So do you guys think that is like, since Tony Stark is the person who's supposed to be the one who creates Ultron, do you think that's Hulk kind of going crazy, or do you think that's Ultron controlling the Iron Man?
I think it's Ultron controlling Iron Man.
That's a good question. I don't know. Guess I hadn't thought about that.
we have to know now because this is all we're going to find out about it. They're not going to talk about it again today.
I'm going to say it's actually Stark in there.
Interesting. Well,
but is the armor being controlled with Stark in there?
No, I think Stark is in it and controlling it.
Okay, I was trying to get you on the technicality.
I don't know, just Stark's got an ego, and I think this whole time he thinks that he can invent something and create something that can stop the Hulk, and I don't think he's going to do it, but he's going to try.
So he's going to be a complete asshole and cause, like, severe amount of damage.
Well, not really an asshole, because he's going to try to stop the Hulk because he might be on the rampage or something, but I don't know. I'm really speculating here. The movie's, like, barely started filming. But
we're writing the movie based on one image. We are.
Yeah, pretty much. And go.
But yeah, that did look cool. I hopefully go back and watch that actual episode, but the images did look pretty awesome. Scarlet Witch, yeah, she did look like she had casual clothes on, but that could be just that one image, like that could be that one outfit or something like that, though.
Yeah, it would be kind of where she gets introduced and stuff.
Yeah, it would be kind of hard to put her in that comic book outfit, but you know.
I'd enjoy that.
So if you see Elizabeth Olsen, I don't think people would be against that, Greg especially. Anyways, that'll do it all for this segment. So we'll take a quick break here, and we come back. We'll be trying to find out who really is the biggest badass out there. And sorry, Greg, it is not
me.
Kim Kardashian.
It's me.
We'll see you in a bit. All right, and welcome back. And like I mentioned as we began the podcast, today we're going to be doing a special little project inspired by March Madness, where we look at the biggest badass out there and try to determine who exactly that is. We have enlisted characters and people from all over the land of pop culture, from TVs, movies, comic books, pretty much anything you can imagine. Put them all in one bracket, and we're going to have them battling it out. Just a proclaimer here, this is not who wins in a fight. This is not who's more powerful. That's not what we're doing, because Batman's in this, so Batman would automatically win that, because that's what he does. He wins all those arguments all the time. This is more so who is the biggest badass. We can use whatever logic we really want to. We can talk about their legacy. We can talk about whatever makes them into a badass per se. And
who can piss farther?
Who can piss farther? You know, we should have got that guy from Bushwhack. He probably would have been great for that. We can use whatever logic we want. And then what we'll be doing for each round, myself, Greg, and Chuck will all vote on who we think is the bigger badass, and whoever has the most votes wins. So it's a democracy here, not a dictatorship. Unless you guys disagree with me, then I will override you, and I'll pick who I want. So besides that, I'm going to Vladimir Putin up this bracket.
I was going to make a Putin joke.
Where are you putting it?
Putin along with the jokes there.
All right. Crimea River. That's all right. Anyways, the bracket has been split into two sides. The first side is the region of the Barons of Bad Amsterdam, and the second are the Bruisers of the Beefcake. And we're going to see who wins each side and then put them together. Today we're looking at the Barons of Bad Amsterdam in that region, and I'm going to
have to spell this on a chart later, right? I'm making up the chart for this, and I'm going to have to spell that later.
I don't think there's a way to spell that. Anyways, we're going to determine the first winner of the first region, and then next week we'll get the winner of the second region, and then they'll battle out for the ultimate badass champion. So I think I made that a lot more complicated than I needed to, so let's get to it. You guys have any questions before we get this show on the road, or any comments?
I had a comment, just that we're probably going to put the link to the visual of the bracket in the show notes, so you can kind of click on it and you'll have like this full visual of the bracket to follow along or whatever. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Better than me just saying it out loud. All right, so we'll get the first matchup underway. And we did, if you know anything about March Madness, there's seeding. Like the best team you think is going to win is higher the seed, and the less chance of winning, there's the lower the seed. So Greg and I and Chuck all came up with a different people that we thought could fit into this, and then we tried to seed them based upon their likelihood of success, how well we know them, and that type of stuff. So that way we can try to make it fair as possible. And then we randomly put them together and created these matchups. So we're starting with probably a very common matchup, one that you see all the time. People talk about it. It's endlessly debated. this one is kind of your standard typical matchup, and that, of course, is Batman versus his arch rival, the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh, yeah!
So we got to determine who is the bigger badass. I think I'm going to kick this off. And Batman being a number 1 seed and Kool-Aid Man being a number 16 seed, it does not sway me one bit. I think the Kool-Aid Man is a bigger badass. This is the reason why. Yeah, Batman has his tools. He's a superhero. He's got all that stuff. But the Kool-Aid Man, Kool-Aid Man's a badass. That dude, signature move is knocking down walls. He doesn't care what type of wall it is. It can be the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China. It doesn't matter. That dude is going to burst that wall down and give the great gift of refreshing beverages. Seriously. And what people don't realize about Kool-Aid Man is his parents were too killed in the alleyway. But did he cry about it? No. Did he dress up like a bat about it? No. He got over it. That dude is reeking in positivity. So he comes in like a boss and he gives kids. That does not sound good thing when he comes in like a boss and he gives kids things. This is not Michael Jackson. Anyways, I think the Kool-Aid Man is a pretty big badass. You don't want to mess with him. I mean, what are you going to do to him? You can't do anything. The dude is unstoppable. So my vote goes to the Kool-Aid Man. Chuck, what do you think?
Even though the Kool-Aid Man has the word cool in his name, I think I'm going to have to go with Batman on this one because I have faith in the detective's skills to find a weakness for someone made of glass.
Is the bird from the core, maybe?
I think he might, determine some sort of weakness as like, a hammer or, just something hard that he could throw at him. So, but no, we're not doing a fight here, but bigger badass. I think, Batman just has more lore, more history, has taken on some crazy villains, kind of never gets rattled, with fear from anyone. I don't know. I just got to go with Batman on this one.
He could bring out Kool-Aid's arch nemesis, the Straw, and he'd be done for. So, anyways, Greg, what is your vote?
Well, I'm going to go based off of Chuck's argument. He's not made of normal glass, though. Chuck, take a glass that's sitting on your desk somewhere, and then throw it up against the wall. That fucker's going to break. Kool-Aid Man will break through that wall. Your house will be destroyed. I'm sorry, Chuck, but he's going to make it through. And so he's made of some type of different glass. Is Batman going to figure that out? I'm not quite so sure, but that straw theory kind of is the Kool-Aid his brain?
It is his soul.
It's his soul?
It is his soul, I think.
I don't know. Stewie made him look pretty silly in one episode of Family Guy.
Batman, after a nice night of prowling Gotham, is probably going to get really thirsty, and the longer the battle goes on, Batman could draw it out to the battle. I think he's going to get thirstier and thirstier, so I think Batman's going to take it by sucking down. Well, this isn't a fight, right? I can't use that logic.
You use whatever logic you want, Greg. Surprisingly enough, this is not official. It's not an NCAA approved.
I don't know who I want to go for now.
I thought this was the presidential badass bracket.
I'll just say this, Greg, if you vote for Kool-Aid Man, I cannot let that happen. I will just vote for Batman because I not one. I don't want this. I want the internet Kool-Aid coming down upon us by kicking up, allowing that to happen. So
we will be removed from the internet.
Fine, I'm going with Kool-Aid Man then.
And I will change my vote to Batman. So moving on to the next round. All right. The next round is that was a 1 versus 16, and then this is an 8 versus 9. So these are two close seeds. And obviously these seeds mean nothing, so it doesn't like it matters. But anyways, it's fun to think about. Number 8. This character is one of the hottest characters right now, literally and figuratively. And that is Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, one of the biggest movie last year. And her opponent, he's probably second biggest thing in the world right now. And that, of course, is JCVD himself, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Who is the biggest badass? Greg, you ended last round, so we'll start with you this time. Who do you think is the bigger badass?
I know who has the nicer ass.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, but besides that.
I'm just going to use that as my entire argument. She has the nicer ass, and she can kick a lot of ass. She's awesome with that frickin' bow and arrow, taking people out, having frickin' Lord of the Flies, kids battling her and her surviving, and outwitting all these, government officials, the hoity-toity government officials. I think Katniss is really badass.
All right. 1 vote for Katniss. Chuck, where does your vote lie?
I am going to have to go with Mr. Van Damme on this one.
Oh my god, that was a shocker!
Yes. And my reasoning is just because of his really long sound effects after he makes a kick. Just that.
He also that makes him slightly less badass, all those splits.
What was that, Greg?
All those splits make him slightly less badass, though.
Yeah, but then when he does the one with the 2 trucks going backwards, I mean, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, I think he's pretty badass. And then just some of the stunts that he's done, cutting a tree down with his leg and breaking pots and bricks and all kinds of stuff. It's got to be JCVD. It's, that's the bottom line for me. Sorry.
So I'm not a badass, and so much so that I'm going to have to go with Katniss Everdeen, because if I don't, my wife's going to get angry because she likes Katniss. But I do think she's actually maybe a little bit of a bigger badass. I think JCVD is pretty sweet. He's pretty awesome. He's got some
sweet.
He's sweet. He's sweet like candy. She's leading a revolt against the government. She, like you said, has some awesome arrow moves. She can kick ass. She's kind of got it all. She's a leader. I don't think anyone's going to follow JCVD to do anything. So I'm going to give the slight edge, the very, very slight edge, to Katniss Everdeen.
This bracket's fixed.
The girl on fire.
How am I involved in this and it's still fixed against me?
You're 1/3 of this. All right. So we're going to put on Katniss. Goes on to the next round. All right. Next up. Oh, we just talked about Batman, and fittingly enough, next up is literally his arch nemesis, the Joker. And he's fighting, again, another classic battle with Doc Holliday from Tombstone, or the legendary outlaw. Who is the bigger badass? I guess, Chuck, you haven't started one off yet, so we'll start with you this round. Who is the bigger badass? Doc Holliday or the Joker? And you could use whatever version of Joker you want, and whatever version of Doc Holliday you want, I guess. But I'm going to guess you're not going to go with the Wired Earp version.
I'm thinking that the actual Tombstone version, played by Val Kilmer. I think he was pretty badass in that movie. Just kind of looking people in the eye and doing his gunfights and not showing any fear.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Yes, classic line. But the only problem with that is he is facing off against the Joker, and honestly, I think the Joker takes the cake here. He is just way more badass. I don't even know how to justify it. I think it speaks for itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta go with you on that one too. I think the Joker is a little more bigger of a badass than Doc Holliday. I mean, to go up against Batman, that to be your thing, and you're not even super powered, you don't know how to fight, you're just super crazy and will do whatever.
He literally laughs in the face of danger. So.
He literally
laughs
does.
Like an idiot, but he still laughs. So.
You have no sense of reality or morals. You literally will do anything and everything just for fun. You have no real motivations. You're not looking to rule the world or get money. You're just like to screw around with people. So, in looking at his history and what he has done as a character and how he's reinvented himself from Jack Nicholson to Heath Ledger to, the comic books and everything, you gotta go with the Joker on this one. So, Greg, where does your vote lie?
You stole all my answers, you bastard.
Sorry.
No, I'm just gonna say Joker, and we can move on to the next category.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Ooh, this one is a little bit of an oddball one, but these are probably the most fun. Fittingly, we just talked about JCVD, and I guess this is kind of along the same lines, and that is, of course, the infamous Rambo going up against Bart Simpson. Who is the bigger badass, Bart Simpson or Rambo? And I guess I'll start with myself this time. And I don't even know who I'm voting for. I'm trying to determine as I'm looking at this. Wow, that is pretty tough. You know what? I think I'm going to go with Bart Simpson in this one. The reason being, like, Rambo, yeah, he's pretty tough. He literally won Vietnam 5 years later after it was over, in Rambo 2. But he's also kind of crazy, and he kind of does stuff without really thinking. Bart Simpson, like, he was a badass for a new generation. Like, you know, the Bartman, he cutting off heads of statues in Springfield. Not many people can be a badass fourth grader for 20 years. I mean, that's a talent. So I'm going to go with Bart Simpson on this, the rebel without a cause. Chuck, who are you voting for?
I'm going to have to go with Rambo on this one. I mean, the guy took on, like, an entire country, like, 2 different times or 3 different times and still won. He freed, countless prisoners of war and did it in style too. I don't know. I mean, I like Bart Simpson, I like The Simpsons, but I think there's no comparison. Rambo wins this.
Greg, what say you?
He runs through the jungle all sweaty, and he still gets the ladies. I'm going to go with Rambo, because I don't even think Bart Simpson has any kind of interest in the ladies. I think he still thinks the ladies has cooties, so... Rambo still gets sweaty in the jungles, all stinky, and he still gets the ladies, so I'm giving it to him.
All right. 1 vote for Rambo. Next matchup, the infamous, the legendary Bruce Lee against the infamous, the legendary Stewie Griffin. Who wins this one? Chuck, where does your vote go?
This one's a tough one. You know, Bruce Lee was kind of the foundation of, you know, karate movies and kung fu movies, and he fought a lot of villains over the years. You know, pretty much defined badass before Chuck Norris even came along. Stewie Griffin's more the newer age animated badass. And I think he deserves some respect in his own right, but I gotta go with the master here, Bruce Lee.
All right. Greg, what about you?
Who survived a worse childhood? Who survived falling downstairs, getting like beat up, and is still living to this day? It wasn't Bruce Lee. It's Stewie Griffin. He goes through time. He creates these baddest inventions. He's traveled through the body. He gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's still alive. He's survived a house full of idiots that could kill him at any moment, and he's still around. So I'm going with Stewie Griffin.
I think we're going to go Stewie Griffin as well. The reason being, he's only a child, so he may be even a bigger badass as he gets older. Like you said, Greg, the amount of stuff he has done as just a baby, it's kind of crazy. You know, from trying to kill his mom to going in time to trying to fight with his neighbor dog. He is a character nonetheless. Bruce Lee is a legend, no doubt. But if I had to pick, like, who am I more frightened of? Who do I think is more capable of crazy and badass things? I'm going to have to go with Stewie Griffin on this one. So we're going to push Stewie Griffin and let him move on.
Oh, that's rich.
Next up, and Greg, I think I'm going to have to start with you on this one because I think you know this one character more than Chuck and I. But to start off, we first have the Punisher, the vigilante with a cause. And he's going up against Brock Sampson from Venture Brothers. And if you listen to any of our past podcasts, you know Greg's a big fan of Venture Brothers. Chuck and I have not really partaken in it. So, Greg, we're going to kind of maybe follow your lead on this one. Who do you think is a bigger badass?
It's definitely Brock Sampson. He's gotten hit with multiple tranq darts and got run over by a vehicle and buried alive. And he has essentially come back from the dead. He had a robot installed into his chest to replace his heart. He's a spy, complete badass. He fights crocodiles. Punisher is just one thing. He's just going after the mob, and he's killed a lot of people, but so has Brock Sampson. He's run over a lot of the Monarch henchmen in his freaking badass car. I forget whether it's a Challenger or a Charger, but it's it's freaking awesome, and he's just running people over. He's got a license to kill. He's the man. And if that doesn't convince you, I have visual evidence for you guys. If I still have it up here.
Greg, put that away. Oh, jeez.
We're not even in the same room, Dan.
I can just tell you don't have pants on right now. I can feel it.
I actually do have pants on this time, but I sent you guys a link, which maybe we could put up on the site. But
will do.
But my vote is for Brock Sampson. I don't think he's going to win it because you guys really don't know what he's about. But
I think you made a pretty good case there. So Chuck, I'm curious, who do you go with? Are you going to buy into Greg's case, or are you going with the infamous Punisher?
I'm going with the Punisher because I have no idea who Brock Sampson is. So.
Fair enough.
And I don't understand it, so I hate it.
No. What are you, the internet?
Exactly. No, but I don't know. I got a little soft spot for the Punisher there, so I wasn't a big comic reader, but I was a fan of the movie, and that was just pretty badass what he did, so I'll have to vote Punisher on this one.
But Brock does more insane shit than the Punisher does.
I'm sure he does, but I've never seen it, so
that's why I sent you the link.
I vote.
It's a campaign commercial from Brock Sampson saying why he's a bigger badass.
He's got a mullet, Chuck. Come on.
Oof, you know what? This is tough. I think, Greg, you put up a pretty good argument, and I am a fan of the Punisher. I've read a lot of his comics. My brother was a big
fan of the Punisher too, but Brock is just more badass.
Yeah. The thing is, I think you put up a good argument, Greg. I do think, based upon what you're saying and my little bit of knowledge of Brock Sampson, and I'm also a big fan of the voice actor, actor that does his voice. And just for the sake of variety, let's go with Brock Sampson. So, Brock Sampson moving on. Maybe a little bit of an upset there. Who knows? And I'm sure the fans from the Punisher body can't listen. They're probably very angry right now, but they'll get over it.
They're all behind their monitors weeping silently.
I can hear the comments as we speak. Next up, going in a completely different direction, but still kind of badass. It's one thing to be badass in a comic book. It's one thing to be badass, in a movie, but to be a badass on a kids TV show in the 90s, that's saying something. And that is certainly the Green Ranger, the Green Power Ranger. And he's going up, though, against Michonne from The Walking Dead. Who is a bigger badass, the Green Ranger or Michonne? I think I'll start this one off. And man, this is really tough. I really want to go with Green Power Ranger, but I can't. To me, Michonne is just a super badass. I think badass, it's someone with the attitude of Michonne. She walks the walk, she talks the talk. While everyone's running from zombies, she's keeping them as pets. With that sword, she can take them down like no tomorrow. She lives in the apocalypse, and she lives in the zombie apocalypse, and in that environment where you have the worst people possible, she stands supreme as a pretty big badass. So I gotta go with Michonne on this one. So, Greg, what do you think?
I keep doing that noise a lot tonight. Pet zombies, man. That's freaking awesome. In chains, I'm gonna go with that. I think it's a no-duh situation.
Okay.
Even though the Green Ranger has a freaking badass vehicle.
We got 2 votes for Michonne, but Chuck, I mean, I could be swayed. Can you provide an argument for the Green Ranger, or are you also going with Michonne?
I think it's going to be a clean sweep here for Michonne. I do enjoy the Green Ranger. His dragon sword was pretty badass, and I know he was probably supposed to be the most powerful ranger, or the most talented as far as his martial arts and everything. But being on a little kids TV show in the 90s, I mean, just the hair on the wimpy side. Michonne, there's nothing wimpy about her. Like you said, Dan, I mean, she talks the talk, but she backs it up. I mean, she's like the essence of badass. I could see her going pretty far in this bracket, actually, so.
Very nice, very nice.
She's going the distance. She's going for speed.
Greg, you're a badass for quoting Cake. I love you, Greg.
I love you too, Dan. I love you too, man.
Next up, finishing off this section, a 2 versus 15 mashup. I've not been saying the C's, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, but We talked about License to Kill, I think you said, with Brock Samson. Well, this person is, for sure, a man with License to Kill. And that is, of course, Bond. James Bond. Going up against maybe the only person in the world that's sexier than James Bond. And that, of course, is Al Borland from Home Improvement. Chuck, I know you're a huge Home Improvement fan, so I gotta start with you on this one. Who you going with? Who is the bigger badass?
Well, I know I haven't seen much James Bond at all, as we talked about in the last podcast, but, you know, Al's a cool guy and all. I really don't see him as badass, though. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he can compete with Bond. Bond's got the gadgets. He's got the ladies. He's got everything. So, gotta vote Bond here.
And Greg, on to you. I know you're a big Bond fan, and I think actually you're the one who put Al Borland on the board, though. So, who are you going with?
I'm going to make a couple of points for Al. He does have frequently said that he does get the ladies going after him, so I think he probably can have a little competition with Bond on that aspect. And I just find it surprising how much shit that he has survived, the shitstorm that is Tim Taylor and his More Power adventures. Like, Al has survived all of that. And he probably knows quite a bit of medical knowledge to patch up Tim on a construction site. But even with all that, James Bond probably gets out like one or two more women, and he actually takes it to the next step with them. And he also survived death many, many a times. The only thing that kind of brings James Bond down a little bit is the
STDs.
Yeah, well, the fact that he survived that is pretty badass. No, the only thing that takes him down like a couple notches is the movie with what's his name, the crappy Bond,
George Lazenby.
Yeah,
I really like that movie.
Really, I've never really seen it, but he gets married, so that kind of chops off his legs a little bit.
Who does that?
But the whole scene with and this is my least favorite Bond. Well, one of my least favorite Bonds. What's his name? Daniel Craig. The torture scene in the first one, where he gets his boys crushed
with a giant rope. Yeah.
Him going through that and pretty freaking badass. So I'm gonna vote for James Bond.
I'm gonna say why I do think Al Borland is an understated badass. I mean, not many people can wear flannel like Al Borland. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's got a beard.
I mean, I was gonna say,
pretty badass.
That beard is pretty sweet. It's pretty tight. And he also hosted Family Feud. I don't know how that makes him a badass, but throwing it out there. But all that said, it's James Bond. I mean, the guy, from the first moment he was introduced in movies, one of the best introductions in movie history. He's been one of the ultimate badasses of badassdom. So I'm going with James Bond as well. It's a clean sweep. All right, moving on to our next matchup, and kind of almost one of the people that inspired this. So pretty good chance this is going pretty far. And it's another number one seed, and that of course is Brian Mills from Taken, Liam Neeson himself, going up against maybe someone a little bit less tough per se, though if he wasn't Taken, that might be an interesting movie still. And that of course is Sweating to the 80s himself, Richard Simmons. We ended with we ended with me last time, so maybe we'll start with Chuck this time. Who are you taking in this one? I'm going to take a guess. I might have an idea, but who's a bigger badass? Brian Mills or Richard Simmons?
Well, I'm gonna say who I'm taking, and that would be Brian Mills from Taken. I do think, I don't know, Richard Simmons, he's got a little badass going on there, because not many people could pull off shorts quite that short.
And that tight.
Yeah, and those, tank tops, and just kind of put himself out there and, have stuff showing when the shorts get hiked up a little too far.
I can see brain.
I don't know, though. Brian Mills, not many people can punch that many people in the throat repeatedly and have, no one learn from it. I just think that's a pretty badass move. Just overcoming that whole thing and taking possible odds, jumping onto a boat and just taking over the boat, taking out everybody on there. he just overcomes the impossible odds. I got to go with Brian Mills.
I mean, Richard Simmons has his own special set of skills. Let's be honest. I mean, he yeah, it might be a bit different. I mean, that guy, you got to give him credit. He has lasted all these years. He's still, doing his thing, but not many people can make a phone call sound just as badass as Liam Neeson in Taken. So I gotta go with him. Greg, is it a clean sweep or are you going with Simmons?
I kind of want to go with Simmons just to be an asshole, but
you would like that.
What?
Sorry, you said no, bad joke.
Sorry, I ruined it once again. Sorry. Yeah, like Chuck was saying, Richard Simmons to go out there and all that gear that he has, that weird afro, his voice, he probably takes a ton of shit and he's still chipper as hell, which freaking is impressive. But I'm going with Brian Mills. He just like called out Putin.
Yeah, you got it.
That's pretty freaking badass, if you ask me. So
next up, we have to talk about him every episode, of course, and that is Arrow from the show, of course, Arrow, or the Vigilante, or the Hood, or whatever they're calling him now.
Who's that?
What?
Who's Arrow?
Oh, he's that guy from that show.
I've never heard of him before.
Oh.
Chuck, do you know who he is?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that's weird.
We'll see how he goes.
I wonder how he made onto the list. Yeah.
He's mysterious, I guess. He's a mystery. It's actually, you know what? It's actually an actual arrow. It's just the tool used by people throughout the years. Anyways, it's Arrow growing up against Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not the infamous philosopher or artist or whatever he was. I show my stupidity there. And Chuck,
Renaissance man.
Chuck, we got to kind of go with you on this one since you're such a big fan of Arrow. I got to see what you have to say. Who was the bigger badass, Arrow or Raphael?
Ever since back in the day, I think Raphael has been the biggest badass of the Turtles. He's kind of that one that fights first and asks questions later. He's really not worried about the danger that he runs into. He's kind of headstrong. And he's not necessarily the leader of the team, which is Leonardo, but he's definitely kind of the spiritual leader, like maybe the heart of the team. He is definitely a big badass, and he garners some consideration. But what would I be if I didn't pick my show that I always sponsor, which is Arrow? I'm gonna have to go with Arrow. The guy spent 5 years on an island, learned how to shoot a bow ridiculously well, stayed in ridiculous shape and muscular somehow, even though he was probably malnourished. So however that works.
He was on the caveman diet.
Yeah.
Paleo.
And, he spent the time on the island with a future villain in Deathstroke and, just had to fight all these people and learn to survive. I gotta go with Arrow. That's just pretty badass.
All right. On to me. I gotta disagree with you there, Chuck. I gotta go with Raphael. Arrow, from what I've seen, he has his moments, but he also has some moments, a little bit of whining. He's got his girl problems. He's a little bit dramatic sometimes. Raphael doesn't care about that type of stuff. That dude just wants to be a rebel. He to me is the bigger badass. Arrow might be the better character, more interesting, but when it comes to levels of badassdom, in a badass degree, I think Raphael has a master's. So I'm going to go with Raphael on this one. Greg, what do you say? Who are you going with? It's up to you. You are the deciding vote. No pressure whatsoever, but if whoever you go, we'll go on.
This is like the second or third time I've had the deciding vote. But you changed it the first time. I don't know. Raphael always came off a little bit emo to me. I don't find emo people to be that badass. Sorry, people at Hot Topic. They're very nice in there, though. The people that work at Hot Topic, they're very nice.
They're just happy to see a normal person when you do. Oh, you don't have eyeliner makeup on. Thank God.
I did at one point. It's a different story, though. I don't know. I just think surviving on an island like that, like just for survival and not having the training that Raphael has and having that good father relationship and still going out there and like kicking ass, because Raphael has kind of a father in Master Splinter. He's got a family that kind of he could go and hug at night, where Arrow doesn't have really that support system.
But to be fair, his father is a rat, so I mean that's kind of badass within itself.
Yeah, kind of. And he lives in the sewer. I'm just giving it to Arrow.
All right, so Arrow moves on. Next up,
You're welcome, Chuck.
we talked about JCVD. We've talked about Rambo. Well, Schwarzenegger gets his turn next with Dutch, his character from The Predator, going up against, the legendary, literally legendary, because legends were written about him, because that's how it's legitimate, I guess. I don't know. There was a joke there I was going for, and I missed it, but hey, what are you going to do? Anyways, it is Dutch going against Achilles, the Greek warrior. Is it Greek? You guys watched 300, is that right? It makes you experts. Anyway, so Chuck, you started last time. Greg, you ended last time, so we'll start with you this time. Who is the bigger badass, Achilles or Dutch from Predator?
I think you guys are going to disown me as a friend, but I haven't really watched The Predator.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
How dare you?
I know there's one person that we talked to that's going to be like, hate me even more. I guess I'll have to talk to his brother about it. But I seriously don't know much about Dutch from Predator. It's Schwarzenegger, right?
It is Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger always plays frickin' pretty big badass, except for Jingle All the Way or whatever the hell that movie was. I'm gonna go with Achilles. Frickin' Brad Pitt just looks badass. He kind of goes a little wussy partway through with the whole woman
Hector!
thing.
You mean that portion of it when he's yelling?
What is that? I'm sorry. You'd say that again?
When he was yelling Hector?
That gets your little girly too. Actually, Dan, you kind of changed my mind. I'm going to go with Dutch.
I am also, actually, you know what? I'm not sure yet. I'm debating. So, Chuck, before I can decide, I'm going to cheat and go to you. Who do you think is the bigger badass, Dutch or Achilles?
I think it's pretty badass that Dutch, basically stood in the face of an alien, and a very scary alien at that. Kind of showed no fear and still attempted to hunt him down and everything. I think that's pretty badass. Not a lot of people would have the gumption to do that. I do disagree on the girly parts about Achilles. I think he was maybe throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum there, but he backed it up big time. Hector was supposed to be the greatest warrior in Troy, and he put up kind of a fight, but Achilles was just toying with him. Achilles was really, really badass in that movie. Even from the guy he fought in the beginning, Boagrius, who was a freaking giant. Just gotta go with Achilles on this one.
You know what? You do bring up some points there. And to be honest, yeah, Dutch did take down the Predator, but he also kind of stumbled upon it. If it wasn't for the fact that he crawled in mud, he'd probably be a dead man at this point. But Achilles, he also has that heel. I mean, that took him out. And I just remember seeing that movie. And if you don't know, at the end, there's an arrow in his heel. And then I hear people from the back say to me, "Oh, Achilles' heel. I get it." I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Those people just instantly lost this bracket.
Yeah.
We should have had Achilles face off against Arrow.
Oh man, this is tough. I think both have their points. Both have their advantages, but I think I'm going to go with Achilles. I do think he's more of the warrior. You do bring up a good point. He does take down Hector like no tomorrow. He's a pretty big legend, even if you don't even count the Brad Pitt version of him. So we'll push on Achilles to the next round. Nice. Maybe we'll get that Achilles Arrow matchup.
He takes a step forward.
He does. We'll see how long that lasts. Heels first. All right. Next up, this is going to be an interesting one for Chuck. I gotta start with him because I know these are two characters that you have a pretty big love for, both of them.
I don't know one of them, so please everybody go before me.
The first one I know that Greg, you of course know this character, and
yeah, I don't know this character.
I think the rest of the world will know it even more very shortly, and that is, of course, Thanos going up against maybe not the most popular character, but you know the actor, and that's Mark Wahlberg, and he plays this character in the movie Shooter, and that's Bob Lee Schwager. And Chuck, I know you're a big fan of that movie. I do enjoy that movie myself as well, but I also know Thanos is one of your favorite characters. So who do you think is the bigger badass?
This is a pretty tough matchup for me. I was kind of shocked when I saw these facing off against each other. I was like, dang it, that's going to be a tough one. It's hard to go against the guy that has swagger in his name. You know, that is tough. Of course, he kind of gets framed by, you know, the U.S. government for shooting the president, but this whole time he kind of had a backup plan going on and kind of takes care of that and holds this ace up his sleeve through the whole movie and, you know, really takes care of business. He was definitely a major badass in that movie. I really do wish that they could somehow expand that franchise, even though I'm not sure if it would work or not. But what can I say? I cannot go against one of my favorite characters of all time anywhere, that is Thanos. He is just, to me, probably the biggest badass in the Marvel Universe, and one of the biggest badasses in all of comics. The guy once killed half the population of the entire universe, basically undid it just because he wanted to. He was able to take on all of the heroes in the Infinity Gauntlet and even a couple of other stories. He faced the major cosmic entities in the comics, and no one thought he would have a chance to win, but he pulled off this miraculous plan and basically just had some fun with it, was toying with it. And they say the good guy always wins, but it's usually not the case when Thanos is involved. He usually does win. So I got to go with Thanos on this one.
Yeah, I think you've done it off pretty well there, and I don't think I really need to add much, so I'm just going to say I agree with Chuck, and I'm going Thanos. Greg, what about you?
Well, since nobody made any really good points about the other guy, and the fact that Thanos is, well, trying to get with death itself is just incredibly badass, so clean sweep.
All right, moving on to the next round. In the next round, we actually have two, I guess, real life ones, both historical figures in their own right, and that is Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, going up against William Wallace. They will not take my freedom himself. But anyway, so we got Muhammad Ali taking on William Wallace. Who do we think is the bigger badass? And I'll start this one off, and I'm going to go with Muhammad Ali on this one for the biggest reason that he is the baddest man on the planet, one of the biggest and best boxers of all time. That guy ruled the ring for huge amounts of time, taking down George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. There's no one in the world that maybe had a bigger influence on the world of boxing than Muhammad Ali. Yeah, William Wallace is pretty badass. The dude was intense like no tomorrow, but at the end of the day, he kind of failed. He didn't really succeed in his goal, and Muhammad Ali did. So I'm going Ali. Greg, how about you? Who are you going with?
Just because he's the winner, I don't think necessarily makes a person a badass or not. The fact that William Wallace kind of won in his own way, man got disemboweled. And he's like still sticking with his morals and his gumption, and that scene is just intense. And he led an army against overwhelming odds. It's got to be William Wallace.
All right, so we got one Wallace, we got one Muhammad Ali. Chuck, you're the deciding vote. Who are you going with?
I'm going to have to go with William Wallace on this one. I think Muhammad Ali is pretty badass. Never really showed any fear of anyone. He was willing to take on anyone in the ring. But I'm not sure of his ability to like lead a group of men or motivate an army or anything like that like William Wallace was. What he did in that movie was pretty impressive. I got to go with William Wallace.
All right. On to our next matchup. We have Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford himself, going up against Xena, the warrior princess.
Or is that
No, it wasn't manly enough, just because her voice is a little bit deeper than that. That was mean. Anyway.
Exactly what her battle cry is.
Chuck, you ended last round, so let's let you start this round. Who wins this one? Indiana Jones going against Xena?
I think I'm going to have to go Indiana Jones on this one. I think he is just way too resourceful for Xena to compete with. I think he uses anything and everything at his disposal to kind of get him out of jams and whoever he may be fighting. I know Xena's pretty badass with that, little metal coil thing that she throws. I don't think it compete with an Indiana Jones.
All right, and I'm going to have to go ahead and agree with you there, Chuck. Xena's pretty tough. She's a warrior princess for sure. But, Indiana Jones, you can't get much tougher than Indiana Jones. That dude, minus his fear of snakes, though. To me, fear of snakes makes him more manly, if anything.
Thanks, Dan.
I also hate snakes. So, but, that dude, he is adventurer of all adventurers. To me, one of the biggest badass moments in movie history, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the sword battle, the guy's going all crazy, fighting up with the sword, doing all of his moves. What does Harrison Ford do? Shoots the guy in cold blood. That to me is badass. So, I'm going with Indiana Jones. Greg, what say you?
What they said.
Moving on with Indiana Jones. Next round, I will start this one off because it's kind of hits me in two areas, and that with Eric Cartman from South Park, one of my favorite cartoons, my favorite cartoon of all time, going up against Lawrence L.T. Taylor. I'm a big Giants fan, and Lawrence Taylor is one of the biggest badasses in football history. The dude changed the game for sure. He's got his other off-the-field issues, of course. He's a big fan of crack, as we all know. He can't get enough. But even with that said, Eric Cartman's pretty hard to beat when it comes to badass resume. That kid, I should say, has done quite a bit. And I'll save it for next round because I'm pretty sure he'll go on. But if I need to say more, I will. But coming from a Giants fan, so that means a lot. A big Giants fan. I gotta give it to Eric Cartman. He's the bigger badass. Greg, what do you have to say?
Didn't Lawrence Taylor also have something with he was like some kind of underage children kind of thing?
He's had a lot of issues. He's been
that kind of instantly takes like any badass credibility away from him, I think. So I'm gonna go with Eric Cartman. I also have something that I was thinking of for Eric Cartman that could take him pretty damn far. So I'll also save that since we're both kind of voting for him.
Yeah,
I think that should be saved.
So Chuck, clean sweep. Are you going with LT?
I definitely would have to go with LT here because you guys are probably gonna dislike me for this, but I hate South Park. I cannot stand it. I think if you watch a highlight reel of Lawrence Taylor, that's gonna say it all. I'm using the logic just of him like on the field, basically on the football field. The dude was just really, really badass, and a lot of offensive linemen who tend to be bigger were kind of losing sleep at night before they had to go up against this guy. So I know I'm in a losing effort, but I'm going to go LT.
All right. And the last round matchup for this round, and we're going Samuel L. Jackson himself against the Sailor Man, Popeye.
Boop, boop.
Chuck, we ended with you last time. Let's start with you here. Who is a bigger badass, Samuel L. Jackson or Popeye?
I used to love Popeye cartoons when I was a kid. I used to watch them all the time. And needless to say, it still did not get me to eat spinach. But hated that crap. But anyway, I think Samuel L. Jackson takes this one. I think he could take it on like speech alone. I think he could intimidate Popeye or something, like just give that speech from like Pulp Fiction or something, and I don't know, Popeye would just pee his pants or something.
Oh no!
Say what again? Sorry. I'll go next, and I gotta agree with you there, Chuck. Popeye, the dude had forearms like no tomorrow. Probably get those checked out. Not
it's a tumor.
It's a good chance. But Samuel L. Jackson, you can't get much more badass than Samuel L. Jackson, like you said. Just his voice, even his Apple commercial with Siri was pretty badass, and he was just acting normally. So I'm gonna go with Samuel L. Jackson.
Dinner for his wife.
Yeah, but it was a badass dinner. So what say you, Samuel L. Jackson or Popeye, the Sailor Man?
I think, wasn't Samuel L. Jackson like a part of Black Panthers or some kind of organization like that?
I don't know. He might have played
I thought he was involved in some organization before he really got into acting. But for that, which may be real or not, I'm going to put him ahead.
All right, so what's a sweep for Samuel L. Jackson? So that's all the first round matches. So we're actually going to go to the second round of this side of the bracket. It's going all the way back up to the top to our good old friend Batman. Taking on the winner of the Katniss Everdeen JCVD battle, which was, of course, Katniss Everdeen.
Batman. Sorry, I'm being an asshole again.
So who is the bigger badass? Batman or Katniss? Bat versus cat. Who are we going with, Greg?
I'm seeing both of them hooking up in my head for some reason.
Are you making your own fan fiction right now?
Batman. Yes, actually. I'd have to switch out Batman with me at some point. I don't know. I hate to do it. I'd like to see Katniss go farther, but I'm going to go with Batman and his brooding and all his freaking gadgets, his freaking vehicles that he's got. All she has is a bow and arrow. And I know you're going to pick her anyway, so I feel a little bit better that at least she'll be picked at some point because Dan's whipped. I'm just joking, by the way, Dan. Ouch. I'm joking.
But it's not wrong. But I am going to go for Katniss, not just because of that, but, you know, Batman is tough. There's no doubt about it. But think about it. Like, Katniss is just a farmer girl from a poor town. I feel like I'm running a Journey song. Who is thrown into a battle. She volunteers for her sister. I mean, she risks her life to save her sister. It's pretty badass that she'll do that. Like I said, and she's just this normal person who takes up a responsibility. She doesn't have special training. She's not a millionaire or billionaire. Because if Batman wasn't a billionaire, would he be Batman? I don't know. Katniss literally has nothing, and she's coming from nothing and becoming something. I think that says a lot. So I'm going with Katniss. So one for Katniss, one for Batman. Chuck, it's up to you. Who wins this?
We know who he's going to pick. Come on.
I'm going to make it short and sweet, and I'm going to say Batman. Do you want to know why? Does anyone want to know why? Because he's Batman.
Where are the other drugs going? Though, all right. Fittingly enough, after talking about Batman, we go to the Joker going up against Rambo. Oh, wow. Chuck, we edited with you last time, so we'll start with you here. Who's winning this, Joker or Batman? Or sorry, Joker or Batman? Joker or Rambo? Was that a Floridian slip? I don't know, but
I know what we're hoping. I know what Dan's hoping for. Wow, this is tough. Wow, they're both really, really badass characters. I think this is the first really tough decision that I've had so far. Ah, boy. I think I am going to go with Rambo, just because I think he knows the risks involved and he does them anyway. And I think Joker's just psychotic and he really doesn't care what happens to him. I think he's just a nut. I think Rambo is more badass because he knows the danger and
it's more of a conscious decision, right?
Right. He chooses to do that. So Joker kind of has to be a goofball, an insane like weirdo. So,
Greg, do you agree? You going Joker or are you going Rambo?
This is really hard. That's what she said. I kind of want to go Joker, just kind of for the same thing as Chuck said, but opposite. I don't really know how to back that up, to be quite honest. Just the shit that he does is so insane that it's badass. And the fact that he's walking around in purple. He's walking around in a purple outfit the entire time with this weird bow tie. To go out in public like that is also pretty impressive. So I'm going to go for the Joker.
Oh, man. I was hoping you make the decision for me, Greg, but I guess
sorry.
Not. So we got one Joker.
All comes down to this.
Yeah, part of me wants that Joker matchup just for next round, but I think that's unfair. You got to look at Joker, you got to look at Rambo. Joker does some crazy things, but are they badass crazy or are they just crazy crazy? I mean, Rambo, that guy literally fought an entire army by himself with muscles and a machete and a headband. And I think I'm going to go with Rambo simply based off the fact that no one could put on a headband nearly as badass as Rambo. That dude can, he tightens it like no tomorrow. As much as I want to see that Batman versus Joker matchup, I'm gonna have to go with a little bit of the upset here, and go with Rambo. Rambo is moving on. Though Rambo versus Batman, also not that bad of a matchup, so. Nice. All right, Greg, again, you might have to fight for your man again this round. And that is with Stewie Griffin going up against the infamous Brock Sampson. Greg, we'll start with you. Who do you think is the bigger badass?
It's Brock Sampson, of course. He doesn't use... The only weapon that he really uses to fight people are his hands and a freaking knife. He doesn't really use much other than that. And he's fought people naked. That's pretty freaking badass.
So is Borat, though. So.
But has he been covered in blood from head to toe while naked fighting people? Because he's just, killed so many people, taken out so many bad guys?
That I don't know. That might be in the Borat sequel.
Okay. Well, Brock has done that. And he deals with all these things that are just way far out there and that could drive other men insane. He has dealt with that. He's gotten beat up probably much more than Stewie has. And that's just when he's trying to make love with his girl that always gets away, his girl that he's always longing for. There are scenes leading up to them not being able to because she's saving herself for marriage. Their scenes together are quite brutal. And Brock gets all sorts of ladies. Stewie doesn't get any ladies because we're not sure which way Stewie's kind of leading with his sexual preferences. Even though being gay doesn't mean make you badass one way or the other, but in my male-centric mind, it makes it a little bit more badass if you get the ladies. So I'm voting Brock.
Okay. Chuck, what do you say? You on Stewie? You going, or has...
Have I beaten you down yet, Chuck? Have I been? I'm like hammering away. Please vote Brock.
Sorry, no. I'm gonna have to go Stewie this one. I think he made clones of himself, and they all traveled to time and screwed up the entire time stream, and he didn't really even care. It didn't faze him. I think just that calm demeanor about, no matter what happens, he's gonna find a way out of it. I think Stewie is more badass in this case.
This is tough. I'm not sure which one to go with, but I look at it this way. What's more badass of a name? Stewie Griffin or Brock Sampson? Brock Sampson is it sounds like a porn star name, but in all the right ways. So.
He's probably actually starred in a porno.
Maybe. Who knows? But I'll go with Brock. I'll keep that train going. Though I don't know how much longer that train's gonna last. But we'll see.
I'm gonna have to keep sending Chuck videos of
and I'm gonna have to keep not watching.
All right, next up. This one's gonna be tough. I still don't know who I'm gonna go with. And that is Michonne versus James Bond. Man, this to me is like James Bond's worst nightmare coming back to haunt him. A woman I don't think he's going to be able to swoon. Man, I am a James Bond fan, but this is tough. When it comes to badass, no, I think James Bond is great. I think he is one of the coolest men of all time. The guy has swagger. The guy has charisma. He's got it all, but when it comes to level of badassness, I don't think you can get much higher than Michonne. Just her eyes alone and the grimace on her face, it's enough. And I think unlike a lot of James Bond villains that kind of explain everything and let him get away, Michonne would just knock his head off immediately. Though, it's not who's winning in a fight, but I just think she's that type of badass. So I gotta go with Michonne. Chuck, I'll move over to Greg, because Greg, I know you're a big Bond fan. So Greg, what do you say? Are you going Michonne? You going James Bond?
I'm not sure how far James Bond would be able to make it through the zombie apocalypse. He'd probably just go into a cave somewhere and get locked up, like one of those government safe house type and apocalypse end of the world type places. He'd probably be in there. I don't think he'd be out and about in the apocalypse. Plus, 2 words, pet zombies. So I'm going to go with Michonne.
Chuck, do you agree, or are you going to go with Bond, James Bond?
I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I'm going to go with Michonne. I think with Bond, I don't know, you take away that security of his gadgets and just kind of his resources, and I think he's going to get a little scared. And honestly, if Michonne has the chance to end something or take care of something, she's not going to hesitate at all. So I think she is more badass.
All right. On to the next round. Oh, this is another really hard one. It's getting tough as we go along here. And that is Brian Mills from Taken against Arrow. Chuck, you ended last time. We'll start with you here. Who are you going with?
This really is a tough one. You hit the nail on the head there. I think I'm still going to have to go Arrow, though. I think I don't know. I mean, I know Brian Mills has a history in intelligence and, security detail and undercover agents and stuff like that, but we don't see much of that. And I think Arrow has a bigger backstory and it's more fleshed out, and there's more examples of his badassness, so to speak. I think I'll go with Arrow.
All right. Greg, what say you?
Oh, God. These are really getting tough. I'm going to go with Brian Mills. He's gone through the training. He's probably had a lot of badass missions beforehand that they kind of implied in the first Taken. And Arrow is just was a rich, snotty kid. So I'm going to go with Brian Mills.
I'll put it this way. When Arrow makes a call, in order to sound more badass, he uses a voice modulator. When Brian Mills makes a call, he uses his voice. So
he has no need of a voice modulator.
That's all he's got.
That is true.
So I'm going to go Brian Mills is the bigger badass. Moving on to the next round, we have Achilles versus Thanos. I ended last round. I'll start this one. And this one, honestly, is probably one of the easier ones this round. Achilles is great and all, but freaking Thanos, like, come on now, honestly. Thanos would crush Achilles with a pinky. You take all of Achilles' greatest feats and match them up against Thanos, and Thanos could do that in a day. So we're going to go with Thanos on this one. Chuck, what do you say?
I got to go with Thanos. It's when it's that clear in my mind that it's just, I don't know, written in the cards, I guess. Thanos is head and shoulders above Achilles, I think, with not only all of his accomplishments, just like the level of opponents he's faced and defeated and basically humiliated. So go with Thanos for that reason.
All right. Moving on to the next one. Sorry, no, I'm Greg. I'm skipping you on this one. Are we making it a clean sweep? You going with Thanos, or are you going to go Achilles?
Yeah, because I think Thanos could just pee on Achilles' heel, and just Achilles would just fall over dead. So
unless he's like R. Kelly and it makes him stronger. Anyways, all right, on to the next round. We have William Wallace taking on Indiana Jones. We ended with you, Greg, last time. Let's start with you here. Who's winning this battle? Who's a bigger badass?
I'm going to sum it up in one word: disembowelment. Thank you and good night.
So you're going William Wallace. Chuck, what say you?
Let's see. Who was it again? Indiana Jones and William Wallace?
And William Wallace, Braveheart himself.
I don't know. I'm going to go Indiana Jones, I think. That's still sticking in my mind, just that resourcefulness. I mean, he is not afraid to use anything within his grasp to accomplish his mission and take down his villain. So, gotta go Indiana Jones.
So we got one Wallace, one Jones. My vote is the deciding factor. I'm going to go with Indiana Jones just because he is the best punch in movie history. Honestly, that smack is pretty amazing. So let's go with Jones on that one so he moves on to the next round. Next up, man, this is freaking tough. At least for me. I don't know. I think, Chuck, I know you're answered this one already. But that is Eric Cartman from South Park going up against Samuel L. Mother effing Jackson. Man, this is tough. Samuel L. Jackson, it's pretty hard to get more badass than him, but does Eric Cartman do that? But God, this is tough. Eric Cartman made a kid eat his parents. Eric Cartman.
And one of them was his father. I've just found out.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that he has done, it is pretty insane. But Samuel L. Jackson, though, if you think badassness is an attitude, and part of it's got to be, part of it's an attitude. Eric Cartman also can get one up to once in a while. Eric Cartman can kind of, screw you guys, I'm going home type of attitude. But I think I'm going to go with, this is tough. This is debatable. I can go either way, but my heart goes to Eric Cartman just slightly, but I could be swayed with a good argument. So, Chuck, what say you? What is your vote?
Well, you probably know my vote, but it's Samuel L. Jackson. The guy just listen to him talk. I mean, it's just way too intimidating. I think he's even gracious in losing or something. He literally would just say, "F it, I don't care." You know, the guy got eaten by a shark and somehow made it look cool.
Oof,
wasn't wimpy like Quint from Jaws or anything, where he was going out screaming or anything. He was literally like cursing when he got eaten by the shark. So, gotta go Samuel L. Jackson.
Ooh, that is a good point. I'm still debating. I could change my mind. I'm not sure. Greg, where does your vote go? You going Cartman? You going Jackson?
I think I'm gonna go Cartman. I think he'd have Samuel L. Jackson yelling into Cartman's face and Cartman just cursing profusely back into Samuel L. Jackson's and standing his ground. And that's what he always does. He stands his ground. He forges ahead no matter whether he's wrong or right. He just gets done what he has to get. He does what he has to get done and he just follows through, and that's pretty freaking badass. Respect my authority.
I think I will, and Cartman's moving on. That's
say it ain't so.
It is. It's an upset. I don't know.
I feel Big Samuel L. would be making it to the Final Four.
I know. I don't feel great about it, but I can't argue against it. Anyway, so we're back up top. I think this would be Sweet 16. I don't even know. I had too many numbers to count. I'm not a mathematician. Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson when you need him? Anyways, next matchup. We didn't get the Batman versus Joker matchup, but we did get Batman versus Rambo. And Greg, you ended last round, so you'll start here. Who do you go with, Batman or Rambo? Who is the bigger badass?
Rambo fought his own people even a little bit at the end. And
it's a tough one. It's hard.
It is. That's what she said. Still going with that joke.
You could place it any place, and that is also what she said.
Put it anywhere. Trying to explain how, like, the winner in my head is just so insane at this point. Batman has cooler shit going on for him. He's got freaking Batmobiles out the yin yang. He's got money. He's got the awesome pad. He's got parents died, but he's still kicking ass. I'm going with Batman.
All right. We got one for Batman. You know what? I haven't voted for Batman once yet, and that's gonna not change. I'm going with Rambo. Again, I'm saying Batman's an awesome character, but when it comes to level of badassness, Rambo's a crazy mofo. I mean, Rambo took on an entire army with a gun, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, Rambo puts on a headband like no tomorrow. He's got the look of a badass character. He might be a little bit cheesy. He might be a little bit crazy, but I think that craziness makes him a badass. So I'm going Rambo. Chuck, we got one for Rambo. We got one for Batman. Is the bat going down, or is he reigning supreme? What say you?
I'm going to push Batman forward on this. I think he has just faced more intimidating opponents. I mean, the guy stood up against Darkseid, in the Superman, Batman, Supergirl story, or the animated one, which was called Apocalypse. He got the better of Darkseid. He stole his security codes or something like that, and basically just stood in Darkseid's face, and Darkseid could squash him like a bug, literally, physically, and he didn't even bat an eye, no pun intended, but just gotta go with Batman there.
Alright, so Batman is moving on. Next up, Brock Sampson against Michonne. Chuck, we'll start with you. You've heard all of Greg's arguments for Brock Sampson.
He's not going to change his. I know he's not.
You also heard but you also know Michonne. Are you gonna finally go Brock, or you staying Michonne? Are you going with Michonne?
I'm going with Michonne just because of the sword. I mean, who is that badass with a sword? Like, it's tough. I mean,
he's badass with a knife, though.
I don't know who he is.
Greg, who are you going with? You going with Brock? You going with Michonne?
Brock Sampson.
And Greg, you make a lot of good points. I do think Brock Sampson has a lot going for him. But at the end of the day, to me, man, Michonne's just got that edge to her that it's just, I don't want to mess with. I don't, she, again, I mean, you talk about he's got a knife, but that's not a knife. Michonne's got a knife. So I'm going to Brock Sampson. I think he's a good run for a character that Chuck and I aren't really aware of. He's gone pretty far. Unfortunately, his run has come to an end. So we're going to go with.
Ashamed of you both.
It's okay, Greg. It's okay, Greg. Michonne is moving on. Next up, we have Brian Mills from Taken against Thanos. I ended last round, so I'll start this one, and I don't even know who I want to go with this. Holy crap. Oh, man. Brian Mills or Thanos. Man, it's hard to beat Liam Neeson, but if anyone could do it, it's Thanos. I think he doesn't have a particular set of skills. He's got all the skills. That dude's got he's got intelligence, he's got panache, he's got power, he's got everything. And I don't think even a throat punch would hurt him, even Liam Neeson. So I'm going to have to go with Thanos. It pains me. It pains me because I was hoping for Brian Mills to the finals, but with this matchup, I don't think he can take it. Greg, who you going with? You got Brian Mills, you got Thanos.
Kind of want to go Brian Mills just to spite Chuck for last round. I'm kidding. I'm going to go with Thanos. He's taking on way higher odds. He's doing it with his mind too, not just his physical ability. And plus, he's serious. The whole fact that he is trying to get with death, just that is badass. Guys on bikes, on motorcycles, driving down the street think that's pretty badass, I bet. Even though he's a comic book character, they're going to be like, yeah, it's pretty badass.
And for anybody that wouldn't understand that, that's the physical embodiment of death, which appears to him as a woman, so.
Chuck, you making it a clean sweep, or are you going to try to convince us that Brian Mills is the bigger badass?
I think I'm going to sweep it. Going to get my broom out here. I just think this might be a little bit of foreboding, foreshadowing. I don't know if it's going to come to this, but I think if there's one guy who prepares more than Batman, I think it's Thanos. This guy, just anticipates everything. I don't think there's any level of badass that Brian Mills could bring to compete with Thanos.
All right, moving on to next round. We're getting to it here. We got Indiana Jones versus Eric Cartman. Chuck, you ended last round. Let's start with you here. Who are you going with?
Indiana Jones.
No surprise there. Greg, who are you going with? Indiana Jones or Eric? Respect my authority, Cartman.
He had somebody eat his own parents. That is just freaking, well, actually, I'm not even sure if I should really use that as an argument. He was a cop at age, however, he's in the third grade and he was a cop for his city. That's pretty badass. And just his persistence. I'm going to go with Cartman.
Man, this is tough. Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my favorite films. South Park, one of my favorite cartoons. Eric Cartman, one of my favorite cartoon characters. The dude's a modern day Archie Bunker. He fights against the PC like no tomorrow. Indiana Jones though, that dude will go, head first to any adventure, jumping on tanks, going crazy. Oof, I don't know. But you know what? In Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, he lost a woman to his dad. Though his dad was Sean Connery, so that almost makes him more of a badass. It's your dad, Sean Connery. Jeez, so many ways to go here. At the end of the day, though, if you look at the amount of badassness in badass things that someone has done, can't really beat what Cartman has done. So I'm going to keep that Cartman train rolling. Don't know how far it's going to go, but for now, we're going to go with Eric Cartman. On to the next round. A little bit of surprise there. This next round, we're into the final four of tonight. Who knows who's going to take this battle? But it's a good one. I think this one's actually pretty tough. And that is Batman versus Michonne. And I'm going to keep my streak going. I'm going with Michonne again. I think I've voted for her every time so far, and I voted against Batman every time. That's not changing. Yeah, Batman is tough, but freaking Michonne would kill him. Would Batman survive in a zombie apocalypse if he doesn't kill people? I don't know. Would he kill zombies? I don't know his moral code.
But they're already dead, though.
True, maybe he would. He does have the batarangs that would help, but I just think she has an attitude to her that Batman doesn't. Batman can get a little bit emo at times. Let's be honest. Like, yeah, his parents died, but Michonne, so did like everyone in the world that Michonne lives. Her kid died. She doesn't really cry about it every single day. She does what she needs to do to survive. So again, on attitude alone, gotta go with Michonne. Chuck, what say you? You going Michonne? You going Batman?
This is another tough one for me. I think I'm going to go Batman, though, just because just the intimidation factor and conversely the fact that he doesn't get intimidated. You use the argument that he gets a little emotional at times, but honestly, I've seen Michonne break down a couple times too. And I think Batman is seasoned and he's aware of that part of his psyche and he knows how to handle it. And I just got to go with Batman.
All right, Greg, we got one Batman, one Michonne. Who are you going with?
Crap, I'm deciding factor.
That is your new nickname, Deciding Factor.
I think Batman would be able to survive the zombie apocalypse just as well as she does. The zombie pet's pretty badass. I'm still going to have to go with Batman and not really give that great of an explanation why, but I think Batman is, like Chuck said, he's encountering way worse than the zombie apocalypse with some of the villains he goes up against.
All right. Batman moves on to the final two for tonight. Really, Greg, though, if your answer is Batman, do you really need a good reason? Pretty much not. No.
No,
Next matchup, we have Thanos versus Eric Cartman, which I would love to see that episode of South Park. I'm just saying, I think it would be amazing. But Greg, you finished last round, so we'll start with you here. Who you going with, Thanos or Eric Cartman?
I think if Eric Cartman was be like, oh, here, Eric, here's Death over here. You want to go on a date with Death? I think he would literally piss himself, Thanos.
All right. Chuck, who you going with? I think I might have an idea.
If there ever was a predictable outcome, this would definitely be it for me. I gotta go Thanos on this one. I don't know much about Cartman and South Park, but from what I have seen, I was not impressed, but I am well versed in the history of Thanos, and that guy his picture appears next to badass in the dictionary for me, so.
I will say this. If there's anyone who's done more evil things in the world than Thanos, it is Eric Cartman. That guy has given his friend AIDS. He has pretty much done it all. He is one evil man. He started a cult. He's done everything you could possibly do.
Is that necessarily badass, though, or is that just rotten?
That's a good point. In the way he does it and gets it kind of away with it and still has it work at the end, I would say there is some badassness, but I do think, though, he does have a little bit of a whiny side, as I said. If things don't go right his way, he can get kind of crazy and screw those you guys, I'm going home type of attitude. So, and it's Thanos. I mean, I love Cartman, but I think this is as far as he goes. I think this is the end of the line for Cartman. So Thanos is moving on. So this is the final matchup for tonight. Oof, and it is a hard one, and I'm not even sure who I'm going to go with. I kind of thought maybe would go this route. I thought possibly that these two characters would go really far. Not too surprising, they're here tonight at the final two, and that of course is Batman and like the man we just talked about, Thanos. And I ended last round, so I will start this one, and I've been going against Batman from every moment, which is so weird. I'm not against Batman. I like Batman. Batman's amazing. He's a great character. The dude is the knight. Everything about him, his persona is just reeking in badassness. But then you have Thanos. The dude literally destroyed the universe. The guy, and he rebuilt it, like you said, Chuck. The guy does anything he wants. He's that badass level of, he doesn't really care. You know, he'll do whatever. Like we said, he goes after death. He courts death. He's the big bad of Marvel. But Batman's the big good of DC. He is the superhero of superheroes. So it's hard to say. I mean, and Batman has no superpowers. It's easy to take over the universe when you have superpowers. Batman's just a dude, and he goes up against Darkseid, which is, who Thanos is inspired by. And if he can go against Darkseid, he could probably go against Thanos. So, he survived the Unibeams. He survived death. He's killed kids in action. I mean, multiple Robins have died under his watch, and he keeps going. I'm gonna buck my trend, and I'm gonna go with Batman. I do think the fact that he can stand up and go toe to toe with someone like Thanos and not blink an eye, that's pretty badass. So I'm going Batman. Chuck, what say you?
This is tough. Kind of thought it would come down to this, go figure with a couple of comic nerds doing a bracket like this that it would come down to Batman and Thanos. Wow, Batman he definitely, comes to mind when you think badass. It's just some of the people he stood up against. But I think Thanos has really stood up to, threats and enemies on a consistent basis that are way above what Batman has. And I think just that experience alone and the confidence that it gives Thanos. And like I mentioned before, if there is anyone out there that plans things more to a T than Batman does, I think it would be Thanos, just by his schemes that I've read before. So it's really, really super close. I would have to give the edge slightly to Thanos.
Oh, Greg, you have been the deciding factor tonight on many different levels. And of course, before we end tonight, you're again the deciding factor. We have Thanos, 1 vote. We have Batman, 1 vote. Who is going to the finals? Who is going to face off against next week's champion? Is it Batman? Is it Thanos? What say you?
I'm deciding that we're going to hear my answer next week. All right. So the letter.
After these messages, we'll be right back. Anyways, Greg, I'm gonna have to put you on the spot. You can flip a coin. You could close your eyes and points. You can throw a dart. I think honestly, either answer is a valid answer. We go on Thanos.
I'm going Thanos. Batman is pretty badass, but I've heard of an incident where I've heard that Batman has pissed his pants. I'm not sure if people go along with that storyline because it's not the
New 52.
It's not in the New 52, and it was kind of a separate standalone story, I believe. Plus, it was a Kevin Smith story that he did it in, so I'm not sure if that makes it count into the actual universe. But Thanos essentially became a god for the most part, tearing down the universe, building it back up. And the only person that really beats Thanos is Thanos. I believe I've read that in one of the comics, that the only way he ever beats himself, ever gets beaten, is because of his own self, his own mind. He literally just beats himself. That's pretty badass, that the only person that can beat you is you.
Yeah.
That is true.
Which sounds a little dirty, but yeah.
I would also add too that I know we talked a lot about Batman's parents and maybe that being a weak point and stuff in his psyche, and I'd like to point out that Thanos chose to kill his own mother to kind of achieve his own means, so that should factor into it right there for Thanos.
Yeah, so I of course the one time I vote for Batman, you guys go the other way, but what have you. I can't.
The old switcheroo on you there.
Yeah. You'll have that. You know what? It's going to be hard to beat Thanos with everything he's gone through. He's beaten Batman. He's beaten Eric Cartman. He's beaten Brian Mills, and he's beaten Achilles, and he's beaten Bob Lee Swagger. Probably maybe not the most complex one, but still, whoever's going to go up against him has a lot to prove. And though we might have some men for the job and some ladies for the job. And next week we'll be talking about who's on the other side of the bracket, which is a mystery at this point. But to give you a little bit of a hint, we have the good, we have the bad, we have the ugly next week. We have men of the iron face. We have those who can survive in every element possible. We have people who have created and just mastered different universes. We have people who have survived apocalypses. We have people who have we have crazy bandits. We have villains. We have pretty much everything you could possibly imagine coming up next week. But before we go, we'd like to end each episode with a special letter. And this week, Chuck is already on his second letter already. And Chuck, you want to just give it a little brief description of what you'll be talking about?
Yes, I'm going to be writing to a comic book writer by the name of Jim Starlin. If you're not familiar with him, he has worked primarily for Marvel over the years. Even was an artist sometimes, but mostly he's a writer. He has done a little DC work, but pretty much sticks to Marvel. And fittingly enough, he's best known for creating the character of Thanos. However, he's also created characters like Drax the Destroyer and Gamora, which will be appearing in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie this summer, and I'm sure he'll probably get a decent cut of the profits from that movie. So, okay, so my letter to Jim Starlin. This is more of a positive one, as my last letter was kind of negative. So, Dear Jim Starlin, I write you on this fine day with the intentions of thanking you. I would like to thank you for the terrific stories you have provided to countless Marvel readers throughout the 80s and 90s. In particular, I would like to thank you for the creation of the Thanos character and the story titled Thanos Quest and its subsequent companion Infinity Gauntlet. These stories captivated me in my early reading of Marvel Comics. For some reason, these stories, more so than any others, piqued my interest and appealed to my imagination. The sheer tact and strategy involved in Thanos' quest to collect the Infinity Gems just really fascinated me. I had always read plenty of comics with superhero team-ups and fantastic action sequences, but the strategy and intelligence behind the Thanos quest was unlike anything I had ever read. I couldn't get enough. And to accompany that intelligence behind this story came the sprawling action and team-ups of the Infinity Gauntlet. It was quite a combination, and that is what makes it one of my all-time favorites. I would also like to thank you for signing my Infinity Gauntlet #1 issue. I'm not the only cat in the world that has one, but it's pretty cool to me to have one of my all-time favorite comics signed by the author. As it were, I took advantage of the short lines in the Baltimore Comic-Con last year, and it was the highlight of the show for me. You were very friendly and not stuck up in any way. I remember you saying your favorite Thanos stories that you wrote were The Death of Captain Marvel and Thanos Quest. Both excellent choices in my opinion. One thing I would have liked to ask you would be how gratifying must it feel to have your character Thanos up on the big screen at the end of Avengers, and how proud you must feel for Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet to sort of be the secret story behind it all. I can only imagine that you have a great sense of satisfaction, like when you complete a major project and gaze upon it with pride and fulfillment. And so I tip my hat to you, Mr. Starlin, for capturing my interest with your writing and for sparking my love of giant crossover stories. I hear you are working on some new stuff with Marvel, so I am looking forward to checking that out. Because what can I say, no one knows Thanos like you since you created him, so I can't wait for your new material. Until then, keep filling that infinity well with great ideas. Sincerely, Chuck.
Well, that proves it. The bracket was fixed. Jim Starlin has paid for this episode, and he has paid Chuck to make Thanos go through, and he has paid Chuck for that letter.
This is like the White Sox scandal all over again.
My complaints in the early round of the bracket were just a big ruse. You know, it was me that had it fixed all along as I was taking after one of my favorite characters.
Very nice, very nice. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know, what we got wrong. Who do you think should have won that didn't? Did Thanos deserve being named #1 badass on this side of the bracket? Anyways, thank you for joining us for this week. We hope you appreciated it and enjoyed it as much as we did. And we'll even have more fun next week when we finally determine who really is the biggest badass. But for now,
this has been Chuck.
This has been Greg, or Brock Sampson, who should have won.
And this has been Dan, who didn't win and didn't deserve to win. And we've been Talking in Circles. We'll see you next week.
I feel like I should pat you on the back, Dan. Oh, it's all right, Dan. That's because Batman the first and only time that you voted for him didn't make it through.
Greg, will you sing for me?
What's that?
Will you sing for me?
Da 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 da. Every now and then it falls apart.
Sing
and
soft,
I need
kitty.
you more than ever.
I feel a little bit better.
Glad I could provide that for you, Dan.
Yeah.
That took down my badass status right there, singing that song.
How are things going for all you guys? That's not at all how you say that. Wow. Edit point. All right, and welcome back. Today, like I mentioned in the beginning, we will be counting down, or not counting down, because that's not at all what we're doing. Man. We are not counting. We are battling.
Excuse me for a sec. I'm getting dry here.
That's what she said. Sorry.
Oh, she's supposed to be the opposite of that.
Sorry. Edit point. I will be editing. So, actually,